the biggest letdown in becoming a rower is like the lack of creativity in the sport. And I think that's what I really miss from hockey is like, you go to rowing practice, you take 10,000 strokes and you go home. Like, you don't really have to see the play and like make game time decisions.
I agree with that, actually. I feel like, especially in college, I'd be like, I just miss playing games.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to The Other 3 Years, a show for anyone who has an Olympic-sized dream they want to turn into a reality.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of The Other 3 Years. This week, I'm sharing a conversation that I had with my longtime Orion teammate, Katy Flynn. So Katy first joined Orion in 2017 when she was still in college at RPI, which is about 25 minutes from Saratoga. She had only started rowing about a year prior and for a club team, which is crazy and pretty incredible and honestly kind of insane that she just started to train with an elite team of post-collegiate rowers with like 1 year of rowing experience. But that's Katy. And I've had the extreme pleasure of watching Katy as she went from being honestly mostly a recreational rower to making the under 23 national team. I saw her win major collegiate races and eventually become Division I varsity athlete. About a year ago, she moved back to Saratoga and is now a full member of Orion, which makes me super happy. Katy works harder than anyone and continues to improve a lot as time goes by year, month by month. And we talked about her unconventional path through the sport and how she's motivated herself and taken each step of her career. I feel like her story is really inspiring because it just, doesn't matter where you start. You just have to be willing to take chances and bet on yourself. And I've had a lot of teammates in my athletic career and I value all of them, but I really value Katy and I'm so excited to continue to cheer her on as she keeps advancing and getting faster and faster. So I'm super excited for everyone to hear our conversation and I hope you like it. But before we get into that, here's an update on what's currently going on in my training. So I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and we are in the first week of our official selection camp for the Olympic team. So all of the groups are kind of doing different things regarding selection, different forms of selection, but we're all here in Sarasota doing it kind of alongside each other, and training is going well. I think everything for me is just getting better, which I'm really happy about. And, it's a pretty intense time and pretty, obviously the stakes are really high right now, but I think it's really nice to be with the whole team and the whole group here. And just obviously everyone has really high goals, but also like you can't be stressed all the time. You have to be able to relax and, spend time with your friends and your teammates outside of practice as well to just alleviate some of that stress. So I appreciate, those moments as much as the moments on the water in which we're like pushing each other, but not that much is going on because we are in so much selection right now. So it's not like we're doing tons of things outside of practice. Although we did go to the circus on Sunday. So there's a circus right on the same land that we train out of. The circus is literally based at Nathan Benderson Park right now. So the coaches offered us tickets to go to the circus on Sunday. And one of the coxswains, Nina, literally started the show. She had the whole circus, like a top hat and a coat, and she welcomed everyone to the show and they kind of honored us for being here and for training. So it was cool. And then we got to watch the whole circus and it was really fun and really cool. I don't know. I haven't been to the circus in a long time, but it was very impressive. It was not super animal heavy. I'd say a lot of it was different, tricks that people can do. And it was just so impressive. People climbing on one another. They had all these different apparatus that they were using. And then the last act was a flying trapeze, which was super impressive. So that was a really fun way to spend Sunday. We ended up moving back into the hotel after the circus on Sunday. So now I'm staying in there's a hotel like right next to Nathan Benderson Park. So that's just really convenient. We have all of our meals back on. There's breakfast at the hotel and dinners at the hotel as well. So kind of back in a different groove than we were in the past couple of weeks. But it's, like I was saying, it's nice to change things up. We've had some new dinners, some new restaurants sponsoring the dinners. So we had like a bento box this week already. Tonight we're having pitas or something. So that's going to be fun. You have to get excited about the little things when not that much is going on. So I'm just excited to, keep attacking training and keep my body feeling good and keep getting faster, because that's the important thing these days. So now it is time for my conversation with Katy. Katy, how long have we been teammates for? When did you join Arion?
The fall of 2017. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
7-ish years.
That's insane. We're like the longest standing members.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, you definitely are. I came and went, but
yeah, but we're like the longest standing teammates.
Yeah.
That deserves a trophy.
We'll get them made.
Well, Katy, I know you're kind of very cool start to rowing, but the people of the podcast don't. So do you mind sharing like a little bit about how you found this sport?
Yeah. So I was a hockey player in high school, which was super fun and a great sport. And then I went to college and I wasn't playing hockey anymore. And I was just like looking for something fun to do. I obviously am super competitive and love sports. So my freshman year of college, I tried every club sport known to mankind and landed on the rowing team, which I went to a small engineering school in New York, and it's just a club there for rowing. So like, think D3 rowing, but like 10 times more recreational. And I was like, this is cool. This is fun, but I'm not really working out. I remember like going to the practices and then like going to the gym after because I didn't feel like I worked out. And then after my sophomore year, I was working an internship in Detroit actually. And I was like living near the boathouse there. So I was like, hey, like maybe I'll go row with this program over the summer. And I like learned how to row a single and ended up rowing a double with this girl who actually went to UVA. We'll
really?
find out about. Yeah, it was crazy. So I went to like summer nationals and I rowed the single and I raced these girls from this crazy club called Arion. And I Googled it. I was like, what is this? Who are these people? And literally Saratoga Springs, New York. And I was like, wait, this is 20 minutes from where I go to college. This is so cool. And I literally, so that's the summer of my sophomore year. I emailed Kat and I was like, hey, I like to row. Can I come row with you guys? And he was like, yeah, show up tomorrow. And I drove myself to Saratoga Springs. I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
I just think like I've tried to explain to people, because I love to brag about Katy. I feel like she's my little sister, or maybe my child. I don't know.
Kind of.
But I'll be like, yeah. And so she just like didn't really like know even what rowing was, and then decided to join an elite rowing team with all of these people that like were out of college. She's still in college, just like, and remember your boat that was like way too big for you?
Big. Yeah. There was like a guy at RPI that was like, hey, like I've got a single, you can row it. And I was like, can I take it to Saratoga? He was like, sure. And I show up and Kat and Kristi are like, why are you rowing a heavyweight men's single? I was like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. That's just like, I don't know. I just feel like, I know you don't think that was a like unique thing to do, but I hope you appreciate that like nobody would have done that.
Yeah. Now that I think, I'm like, you hear all these stories of rowers and they're like, oh, like rowing, you can start in college. And I'm like, yeah, I started in college, but this is a little different. I went from club rowing where like we some days would only have 4 girls or less, like you know, you didn't really row, to immediately doing an elite training plan in a single when I was like, you know, 19.
Yeah. What was that like? Were you like,
Kristi,
what is going on?
I don't think I had the ability to even say what's going on because I had no idea what was going on. I don't even think I looked at a training plan. Like Kat must have shared it with me, but like I just showed up and whatever he said into that walkie-talkie, I did. And practices were kind of funny because I would like see how long I could get before he would have to wake me out to like go catch you guys because I would be so far behind. And then like every day I would get in the car after practice and be driving home like, this guy's going to cut me. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, he's going to call me up and say, don't come back. You're dragging my practice down. And he never did.
Of course
he just let me go at it out there. So, yeah.
Were you ever like, I don't know if this like makes sense. Like, was it ever frustrating for you? And you were like, I'm waking up so early. I'm driving all the way there. I'm taking all these engineering classes. Like, this is,
right.
I feel like you came every day. You didn't ever not come.
Every day. I remember I didn't really understand what you guys were doing. I was like, oh, these are post-collegiate rowers. Like, they're just up there having a good time. And like, I didn't really grasp that like, oh, these are like future Olympians. Like, they are working towards that goal. I was like, oh, I'm just part of this club. And like, I like working out and competing, and that's great. And it's like weird that I'm doing this not with school, but like people do weird things, like it's fine. During my first year, Kat was like, hey, like apply to U23 camp. And I was like, first of all, what's U23 camp? But I filled out the application and like got invited. Again, had no idea what I was stepping into. And I show up like at Princeton and all these, I don't know why I was more intimidated by these girls. Maybe because they were like my age and they were like big sweepers and like you guys were like fun scullers. I was like, oh, we're like really doing this. These are big people doing big rowing things. That's when I was like, this is crazy. I'm at a national team event and I've been doing this sport for like half a month.
Yeah. Well, that was what was always, I think, crazy to me about you. I was like, I just feel like Katy doesn't understand that like she's doing very impressive things. And I feel like it was hard because like, I mean, you were slower than all of us. And then remember when you were a senior and I was like, you're going faster than I was when I was a senior in college. Mm-hmm. Like, and you were just like, that's not true. And I was like, it is true. I don't know.
Right.
Like, I don't know how to explain it to you any more clearly. Yeah.
No, I think I like still to this day, I'm like, oh, I'm not Kristi. Like, I'm not fast. But I think then it was like, these girls are going like, I didn't even know what was fast for a 2K, but I was like, oh, I'm 20 to 30 seconds behind. I must be slow. Whereas like, I didn't realize that like, you're the best of the best. Mm-hmm. And my slow was like kind of okay.
Yeah. Do you remember when you PR'd on your 2K in the middle of your 6K?
Yeah, I do. I do. But like, that's crazy.
Yeah. So your first year was when you went to the first camp.
Yeah, and you guys were all there.
Yeah, we were there. And what was that experience like being at camp?
I don't want to say it was a bad experience because it was like a very motivating experience, but it was to be seat racing for the first time at a U.S. rowing selection camp is a little crazy. They're like, oh, this is your start time. These are your boats. Like, do this. And then they email out results. And I had no idea what it meant. I remember like taking a screenshot and sending it to you guys and be like, hey, like, am I doing okay? And like that camp in particular, I feel like the selection was it was weird. No one really knew who was faster. We were doing like 1500s rate capped at like a 22 in doubles for a quad. And I'm like, cool. I didn't know that it was like a weird thing, but like it was cool because I was like, oh, I'm like going the same speed as people who are on D1 teams. I'm just this club rower because like again, to me ARION was like at the time just like a club that I was rowing at. It wasn't this big elite HP team that it really is. Yeah.
And then did you feel like, I don't know, coming out of that camp, like did you feel like that changed anything about the way that you like approach training going into, because did you go to like maybe I just don't really remember like all those races that first year? Or
so that first year I did go to Dad Vale's. I didn't like go to Acra's yet or anything, but like Dad Vale's was just like, it was somewhere that I could race the single in the spring that was like local enough that I would drive myself. And I went actually because Ryan Springer Miller, one of our older teammates, was also like, she had gone the year before. So I knew about it. Like I wouldn't even known about that race if like she hadn't been around. So yeah, the camp, like the first year was really like eye-opening to me and kind of like, oh, like you can be national level, you can keep doing this and like keep training, because I hadn't really even considered that. Like I was, again, just like rowing to like have something to stay in shape and just like have fun while I was in college. And then going into my senior year, I was like, I'm gonna be an elite athlete now. You know, I was like, I gotta go to bed and I gotta like get my homework done and all of that stuff so that I could get faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like your senior year was pretty like impressive. I mean, I don't know.
It was fun. Yeah. It was fun. I raced like all the only college events that you can race in a single. Head of the Fish, obviously the most prestigious on that list. But then Dad Vales and Acras, which were cool. And like racing Sophia Lewis, she was at all those events that year. You know, you see her name everywhere now. So yeah.
And you were beating her.
A moment in time, Kristi.
Yeah,
just a moment in time.
Still. I remember we were all watching Acras when you were racing, and like, what did it like start? And then they brought you back to this, like there was like a false start or something. Kat was
Sophia
freaking out.
False started. I remember.
Oh my gosh, Kat was like, "What's going on?" Like,
that's funny.
Which one is Katy?
It was crazy. I think it was funny to like go to some of these regattas. Like I car topped a single by myself. I was like, hey mom, like you want to go to Philly this weekend? I'm going to this race. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but sure. Like I always joke with Kat now that I've been the most successful at regattas that he didn't go to, because I won all those college races when he didn't go, which I'm sure he loves to hear, but.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then you went to camp again that summer.
Yeah. So camp was in Charlottesville that year, and I had, I guess, a parallel story is that I had already decided to go to grad school. I had found out like in the fall that the way the NCAA rules are written, you have 4 years of eligibility and you have to use them across like this 5-year timeline. So I had obviously not used any of them. So I had a year left and I was like, cool, I'm going to go row for a D1 program. Like this is going to be an awesome experience. Narrowed down all the programs, did all the recruiting crap, and Virginia was where I was going to end up, mostly because of the engineering school and like the offer I got there. But U23 camp was in Charlottesville, so I was like, this is great, like I'm moving to Charlottesville, I'm going to go to U23 camp and then like I'm there. So that was really fun and ended up making the quad. I think like going into that camp I was so much more just like confident and like I knew what was going on, and I had a year of elite training under my belt. And all these girls, I think it was really helpful, like all of these girls were coming off of their NCAA season and sweeping and like peaking for NCAAs. And I just like barreled through rowing my single. That was kind of a leg up I had for a quad.
And then what was it like being on a college team? Obviously very different than like being on the RPI team, but I also assume pretty different from being on like a team with all of us.
Yeah, it was shocking to me. I think more shocking to me to show up at UVA than it was to show up at Orion. Because day one, I roll up and they're like, all right, 30-minute erg test, 22, like hit your standard. And I was like, I'm sorry, there's 100 girls in this room and we're all about to do a 30 rate 22. It was also interesting just like being a little older. I was like, I already did college, and like they're sending me to all the like new student events that I had to go to as an athlete. They're like, do your homework, go to bed. We're going to check and make sure you go to class. And I'm like, okay, I'm 21 and these kids are like 17. But yeah, and then that was like learning how to sweep. No one taught me how to sweep. Kevin sat me down and was like, pull hard, like best of luck. And I was like, okay. But it's like weird. Like I was a novice, basically sweeper, but I had just been to the World Championships as a U23. Interesting.
Well, I feel like people think it's pretty easy to go sculling to sweep. It's just hard to go sweep to sculling.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
We made it happen.
Yeah. It's not like that. I don't know. I feel like it's sort of uncomfortable, like, now when I do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I just want to be straight. I don't want to turn. Yeah. And that year was the pandemic, right? So then you didn't get to race.
Yeah. So that was crazy. Like, I got to go to the Charles in the fall, which was awesome, like making the 8 that fall. I was like, cool, like this is it. Anyways, then COVID hits. I'm like, well, crap, this was my 1 year. Like I'm toast. And now I'm in grad school in Charlottesville. I'm like, can't even row. And fortunately, like obviously they granted everyone an extra year, and fortunately my program was still going on. So I ended up sticking around in Charlottesville, got really close with the men's team because they all stayed and were training singles. So I got to train with them, which was really fun. And then coming back in the fall was like, it was cool because I was able to like step into a more leadership position on the team instead of being like an old first year. I was like, oh, like now I'm a vet. I know what I'm doing. And we had like a weird fall because of COVID, like small boats, but then like went to NCAAs, did pretty well there, got the whole experience, and then, you know, stuck around for a few more years of school.
Yeah, what?
So
you were only planning on doing that like 2-year program initially, right?
Yeah. So initially, like I got into the school and I was like, great, like I'm going to get my master's. It's a 2-year program. I'll row for a year and then I'll just like train on my own for a year and figure out what I want to do with my life. And then while this whole COVID thing is happening, I get offered a research fellowship to like pursue a PhD. And I'm like, well, like, do I really want to do that? I don't know, but like they're going to pay me. So I'm going to say yes. And then if like later down the road I don't want to do it, I can just, you know, take my master's and leave. So I spent 2 years following those first 2 years working in research and training on my own, which was maybe not the best decision looking back on it, but it was a decision and we did the best we could for as long as we could.
I don't think it was a bad decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't the most fun.
Yeah.
Like working a lab research job where you're like just probing tiny electronics all day and then trying to do an elite training program on your own is a challenging task. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you've spent a lot of time doing kind of more independent training, which I personally feel like is pretty challenging.
Yeah. Fortunately, like even I remember immediately when COVID hit, I texted Kat and was like, hey, can I share me your training plan, please? Like I need something to work with. Then moving forward into those 2 years, I like tried to kind of be like more in a remote Orion athlete. Like I stayed in touch with Kat. I had the training plan. I think that people undervalue the importance of like just having teammates around every day. I could go out and do the 20K. That wasn't the problem. It was like the quality of the rowing and just like the enjoyment in what you're doing is really dependent on the people around you. So, you know, I like ticked the boxes. I did the work well enough that like now I could come back and make a lot of progress. You really realize how important it is to have good people around you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting because like obviously we do spend a lot of time as scullers and singles, but I personally like have always really enjoyed the like teammate aspect of sports.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when we're all in singles, like I'll still have teammates around and I like, you know, that part. Like even if I'm not having the best day, I still want to be around other people. Like that's something I like about it.
It's a huge part of sport.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, that was like a hard part of COVID for me was like, I feel like everything was so separate and I could, like you were saying, like check the boxes sort of and do the work, but like it just wasn't very fun. And like, I guess I'm grateful that I'm the kind of person that like will still go do it, you know? Yeah. Because I understand that for a lot of people, like they just won't. It's weird to look back on now because people like, you know, even Kat will be like, well, like COVID was so good for you, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't really that fun.
Right.
Like I wasn't really
that fun.
Erging in my house. Yes, it happened.
In my tiny apartment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, I did that. Yeah. I don't ever need to do it again.
Yeah. Like, I think it makes you appreciate, you know, having other people around.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me, like, how much Orion has changed over the years.
Yes.
And, like, I mean, I'm very grateful for like all of the Orion teammates I've had, and the you know the early people like were great. It just in different ways, and I think it's just so interesting. Like the culture now is just so different than it was.
It's so different. I don't even know if you can like put words on what's truly changed, but it's like, I don't know, if someone from like 2017 walked into one of our practices today, they'd be like, this is foreign. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
every once in a while I'll like pull up one of Kat's old Excel training plans to just be like, guys, like, look how far he's come.
I know. I know. Well, that's the other funny thing. Like people, and I appreciate how, I don't want to say like demanding, but like how like people kind of ask a lot of him, you know,
Yeah.
and just like a lot of being on the team and, you know, whatever. But it is so funny to me. I'm like, guys, we used to just like go to practice and like
Go to practice.
not know what was going on. And
No,
I don't
you
even
just
know.
like you turn that radio on channel 9 and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. No, but I feel like the other thing that like is interesting to me is for me, I mean, I obviously like a new person will join the team and I'm happy to have them there, but like it's always been the kind of thing where I feel like for me to really like trust people, I have to just like see it and like in a
it takes a lot of time.
yeah, especially in a teammate sense. And I feel like when you were like away, it was like a lot of people didn't know you and like I would speak like so highly of you, and I think that the other girls would get kind of like mad, not like mad, but like they're like, why does she like Katy so
who's
much
Katy
and like
Flynn?
whatever. And it's like, well, I saw Katy like come to practice every day and like work super hard, and it's not that other people haven't done that, but like I didn't get to witness their like true like entire
like
climb
yeah,
up.
like you've seen it all. You've seen it all.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's just like crazy. I mean, and you've seen like it all for me, you know? So
yeah,
I feel like you can really appreciate it more like when you have people that have been a part of the journey.
the whole journey. Yeah.
Orion early days was just like a lawless land.
It was a lawless land. You think it was lawless? Like, I'm like, put yourself in my shoes.
Oh, I know.
And like
some of the things you guys did, Katy, like when you drove to Florida with the boys and then
with Alex Lloyd,
and then you guys just left. Like
yeah, we were like, no one's here. Kat was like, go to Florida, like there's lightweight girls there that'll be your speed. We show up to Florida, no one's here. And the boys were like, we're leaving. And I was like, well, I'm on spring break. Like, I'm staying, and I'm just going to row around Nathan Benderson Park. Like, before Nathan Benderson Park was what it is now, we just showed up and rode for a week and then drove home.
It's crazy. I know. I remember also when we were at that, I like literally think it was maybe your first year, like the first speed order that you went to.
The crazy one.
Yeah.
The crazy weather. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, like, I can't even imagine that being like your first race.
Yeah. That was my first race in a single.
Literally?
Like my first 2K.
For some context, this race was truly, I don't even know. It was so windy.
So windy and cold. It was in Princeton in like, I don't know, early April or something.
Probably early April, but it was really, really cold, and it was like really, really windy, like very, very bad weather. And somebody flipped, right? Like, yeah. But our races were just like, it was just a crazy situation.
Yeah.
Like,
I just remember that Jevi was behind me in the time trial, and I was like, she's going to pass me. Like, immediately, she's going to pass me. And Kristi was like, no, you're going to be fine. Like, there's plenty of time between people. She's not going to get you. And I was like, the only name I know in rowing, Jevi. Like, great. Here we are. She didn't pass me.
See?
I don't know. They must have saw me and given me, like, an extra minute or something. But...
No, Katy, no. I'm glad. I actually remember that. I was like, oh God, I really hope she doesn't pass her, because I was like, she's not going to pass you.
I know, I remember.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
I think about that, like, this winter speed order, I had the privilege of passing someone, and I was like, it happens. It does happen.
I had the privilege of passing someone.
I mean,
it is kind of crazy when you pass somebody during a time trial, because I just feel like it doesn't happen that often. And then you're like, wow, this is happening. Like, this is crazy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I one time passed somebody in my lane, which was crazy because like they had to move and they like didn't move. And so I had to be like, you're in my lane.
Like move.
Like, please, whatever. And then it was weird. She still didn't get, she like moved over, but didn't get like all the way out of the lane. I don't know. I guess I could have like complained to somebody, but I just didn't because I don't know.
You probably didn't need to.
I don't know.
If you're passing somebody.
I don't know. It's just the time trial.
That was before Misadventure.
Yeah.
Back in those days.
Yeah. Although I literally actually think there was Misadventure at that race because
it might have been the first one.
Somebody's like oar broke and then they like let more people into the
Yeah, I think it was that one actually.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the like biggest things that you've learned kind of from the different like stages? Like if you used to call like Orion 1 and then like UVA, like how would you say, maybe not what you've learned, but like how your like approach to training and like rowing has changed?
Yeah. I think like first and foremost is like understanding what I'm doing is huge. A D workout, I know what that is, and I like know how hard I need to go for some of these workouts. I think early Orion, I was just trying to stay afloat every single day, which, was what executing the workout was for me at the time. But now it's like, I know what splits I'm supposed to be holding or like what the ballpark is and how I feel in a workout has really evolved, I would say. And then also just like how to be an elite athlete and how to be smart, taking care of your body and how that impacts your performance. Like in playing team sports, you don't really, I'm sure on the elite level, you're taking care of your body, you're doing all those things. But like when you play elite, like team sports as a kid, it's like you go out and you have fun. You don't really need to think about all these factors that you have to worry about outside of the game. As you become more elite in the sport of rowing, you realize like, this is about doing the work in practice, but it's also about like getting your mind right and fueling right and prepping right and all of those things. And just like now being able to just like do those second nature, like, I'm going to bed and I'm like logging my workouts and like that kind of stuff. You don't realize how important it is and like how crucial it is to your success, really.
It's hard to learn that without like literally experiencing it though.
Right. I even think like a couple of years ago when I went to UVA, I was like, oh, like I've been an elite rower. Like I trained at Orion. I know what I'm doing. Like had no idea what I was doing. And even I think that what really was crazy is like being at Orion, not having the D1 athlete resources and then going and having the D1 athlete resources. Like I worked with an athletic trainer for the first time and I was like, whoa, like you just get to see this person and they help you when you feel bad. Crazy. They give you food when you go on a trip. That's crazy. And I was actually like very taken aback at the funding that these college teams have relative to like the resources we had at Orion,
Yeah, I guess it would be really weird to go in that direction, like to do it in that direction. Especially to a place like UVA. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like in college we had resources, but I think it's just different, a different level.
For like a sporty school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember on my UVA official, they literally brought us into the like gear room.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I was a weird kid, so like I didn't find that to be like this thing that made me want to go there. And they also showed us the like buses that you can like sleep on.
Yeah.
And I was like, this also doesn't make me want to go here. Like, I don't want to sleep on a bus.
You're like,
in hindsight, I did have to sleep on a bus, just not in a bed. It was in a seat. So I understand now why they were showing.
Right. That's funny.
But yeah, like, I don't know. It's funny. I also, in my mind, the thing that like sticks, well, I remember like somebody telling me once that their athletic scholarship included like a clothing stipend for the winter.
Yeah.
That was crazy. But
yeah,
we went to Texas my senior year of college for like the very end of our spring break, training for a couple of days and then racing. It was before like Dave O'Neill went to Texas. It was their old system, but we raced UT at like their old Longhorn Invitational, and we would eat in like all the college dining halls that we would go visit,
Yeah.
which was, I thought, cool.
Right. It's kind of cool.
But we ate in like the athlete dining hall at Texas, and they had these chairs that were like the size of 2 chairs for like really big football players or whatever.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
I was like flabbergasted. Like literally our dining halls would not stay open like late enough. Like we would like miss
For your
dinner
practice.
sometimes.
Yes.
We did not go hungry. Like we were fine. But like it was just so mind blowing in the moment. Oh, and they had fresh berries. I remember they had fresh berries and big chairs,
course.
and we were all like, this is insane.
Yeah. So that, like, you were going from Yale to UT and you're like, holy crap, this is crazy. I was going from RPI Club / Orion to UVA. And I was like, I'm sorry. You're giving me clothes to wear with the school name on it? What? So.
Yeah. You don't have to sleep on a pullout or on the floor or whatever. Yeah.
Like everybody has to have their own bed.
Crazy.
Who knew?
Amazing. I know. What are the similarities you see in hockey and rowing?
Ooh.
What have you brought from hockey into rowing?
This is a good question. I was hoping we were going to talk about hockey. I love talking about hockey. Oh, yeah.
Well, now I'm a hockey. Katy and I went to a hockey game recently, so.
Yeah, we did.
I know everything about hockey now. There were a lot of fights, which was what I was there to see.
I think that learning how to grind is like a very important skill, especially for like a young athlete. And I think that across all the sports I've ever played, was never like particularly talented in a way where you're like, wow, like crazy, like such natural skill. So like I had to do like, I went to a lot of skating lessons when I was a kid, which I loved, but like I had to learn how to properly skate. Thankfully, my mom was like into figure skating, so she like knew that I didn't know how to skate and was like, no, you need to like bend your knees more. So that process of like learning how to do something, I really took from that. And like I think that when you learn how to row, like rowing isn't the same in talent application, I think, as a lot of team sports. Like almost anybody probably could row. Maybe not well, but you can be taught the like motion of the stroke. I think that you have to learn how to learn, I guess, is something that I took away from a lot of my sports. And when I got to rowing, it was like, oh, like I need to watch people doing this and I need to practice this motion over and over. And then I need to figure out how to apply the force while I'm doing it. And that was like, okay, now I'm a rower. I can do this. I do think, and I'll add this because this is a soapbox I will die on, that the biggest letdown in becoming a rower is like the lack of creativity in the sport. And I think that's what I really miss from hockey is like, you go to rowing practice, you take 10,000 strokes and you go home. Like you don't really have to see the play and like make game time decisions. But
yeah.
I agree with that, actually. I feel like it's sometimes, I especially in college, I'd be like, I just miss playing games. Like,
yeah,
you just want me to come here and erg for 80 minutes, and I would just like to play a game.
Yeah, you're like, I want to put something in a goal.
Yeah,
like
which I will say we would, well, first of all, that's probably why you like working with Kat so much, because I feel like he is pretty creative and tries to make things like more exciting for us and like do things in a way that we can understand and whatever. But when I was in college on Saturdays in like the winter, we would do our like erg, and then we would do a team relay race that was lifting.
Oh,
seems dangerous, right? Like
it seems
coffee
really
can weights. Like you had to do like 15 high pulls, like put the thing on your back. But the last thing was that you ran down, like the tanks were in the sub basement, so it connected to like where the players' entrance to the basketball arena was. So sometimes the last step would be that you would sprint down the hallway all the way across the basketball court, make a layup, and have to run back. And
that's awesome, right?
Like so fun stuff like that. So I always appreciate when rowing coaches can like make things slightly more fun and exciting for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. And there are no fights in rowing. So, you know.
There could be. We could make that happen, Kristi.
Yeah, we could. I mean, I still don't know if I like the idea of just like a trash talk day
I'd rather just like slide in my trash talk whenever I want, but I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So
I'll trash talk any day of the week.
Amazing. Do you have any questions for me?
You got any good cat stories to share that we haven't heard yet?
Oh my God, I feel like I have an iconic cat story, but I don't know if I should tell it on the pod. Well,
okay.
No, I will because I'll embarrass him because it was so funny. Okay, so I'll leave out some details so that we don't get anyone in trouble. Okay, so basically SRA wanted to put in a new fence, and Kat was like, "Oh, I'm gonna call this fence man that I know and get a quote." So he calls up the fence man. Mm-hmm. Sorry, he calls up a first fence person. And this fence person says, who I don't really think is a fence person, says, yeah, it's going to be $12,000. But part of that is that I have to remove the fence. And Kat's like, I know people that can remove the fence.
Right.
So lo and behold, the fence comes down like that. So now there's just no fence. Kat then calls a professional fence company who I think has some sort of tie to SRA, but I'm not exactly sure what it is, and says to them, we need a fence. And they're like, we can do a fence for you. And he's like, you can do a fence for me? And they're like, yeah, we can do a fence for you. And he's like, amazing. That's amazing. Perfect. This is what we need. And they're like, great. We'll be in touch with details. And he's like, amazing. And then he calls Catherine and is like, Catherine, I got us a free fence. And Catherine's like, are you sure? And Kat says, yes, I got us a free fence.
Got us a free fence.
So then everything is proceeding with the idea that we now have this free fence. Mm-hmm. So then Catherine is sent an invoice regarding the fence. Course. It is not free. It is, in fact, their most expensive option.
Cat. This is a classic.
It's so classic situation. And Catherine's like, Kat, I thought the fence was free. So she calls.
Just see the 404 error on his face.
She calls the fence man and is like, well, you spoke to Eric and he said the fence was free. And the guy's like, I never said the fence was free. But I will say, I appreciate that Kat is always I need to go through life with the optimistic view that he does.
Yeah. And the everything will work out.
Everything will work out. And honestly, I used to be so stressed when we would go on trips and we would not have information and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it always works out. It's always fine. Of course, I sometimes still get frustrated at him, but he does figure it out. I have yet to sleep outside. I have had a bed every night.
See, I feel like it's fortunate for me that I was able to learn this years ago, because on this training trip we've been on where we've moved around a bunch of times and just had to pivot, I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's all good. And people are freaking out. I'm like, guys, it's all good.
Yeah.
We're going to Orlando. We're going to Tampa. Who cares? We're rowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know. But I also think that maybe if he just applied a tiny bit more detail into planning things, then I feel like Airbnbs cancel on him an exorbitant amount, more than the average, which I don't know if that's user error. I'm not sure. But yeah, the fence thing really got me. That was a good recent story. Kat, I'm sorry. We do it out of love. And I will say, I feel like I can make fun of Kat, but other people make fun of him, and I'm I will cut you.
I know, exactly.
What are you talking about? You know nothing. And they're yeah. So
it's true.
It's pretty funny.
It's true.
Well, Katy, thank you so much. I feel like this was fun.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh.
A privilege, Kristi.
Do you have any miracle quotes that you want to leave the people with? Or, any quotes. Yeah. I just know that you...
Great moments are born from great opportunity, Kristi. Never forget that.
Mic drop. I'll drop my mic. That would have been... If I had actually dropped it?
That would have been bad.
That would have been bad.
So thanks for listening, and thank you so much to Katy for coming on. I love being able to speak with my friends and teammates like in this form on the podcast, because we always have such deep and meaningful conversations, and I feel like I get to know them a little bit better while also having a great conversation that we can share with so many people that listen to the podcast. And Katy was really no exception. I was so excited to talk to her and for her to share her story, because I do really think it's very inspirational. And I think that people shouldn't feel like they can't have lofty goals and achieve something just because maybe they started in a different place than people normally start in. So to close the show this week, I'm sharing a quote from the movie Miracle, as Katy mentioned in the episode. It's one of her favorites. So this is at the end of the movie, and it's the head coach, Herb Brooks, and it's kind of long, but I feel like it's very good. So he says, "2 days later, the miracle was made complete. My boys defeated Finland to win the gold medal, coming from behind once again. As I watched them out there celebrating on the ice, I realized Patty had been right. It was a lot more than a hockey game, not only for those who watched it, but for those who played in it. I've often been asked in the years since Lake Placid, what was the best moment for me? Well, it was here, the sight of 20 young men of such differing backgrounds standing as one. Young men willing to sacrifice so much of themselves, all for an unknown. A few years later, the U.S. began using professional athletes at the games, dream teams. I've always found that term ironic, because now that we have dream teams, we seldom ever get to dream. But on one weekend, as America and the world watched, a group of remarkable young men gave the nation what it needed most, a chance for one night not only to dream, but a chance once again to believe." So thanks for listening. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye.
I'd love to hear from you, so send us a topic suggestion, or if you'd like to submit a question for our Ask Kristi Anything segment, head to our website, theother3years.com.